Okay, so before we move on to refining the edges, I just want to make two more little adjustments to the baby. I just was looking at it, and there's a couple of things I would need to fix. So what I've done is on top of what we've just done, I've added another curves adjustment, which is like I'm just going to rename to Final Curves 2. This is just some color adjustments and some slight lighting adjustments to the subject. So if I turn this on, I'm going to show you what I mean. So I've just added a little bit more contrast to the subject, and the colors are a little bit more attuned to the background colors. So if we look at the lighting here that I've done, so I've basically just moved the, if we reference the curves, the shadows here, I've just moved the shadows just up slightly to make sure the edge is blended in with the shadows that we've painted underneath. I've clipped in the mid-tones here with this little point just to make sure that we're not affecting too much more of the image, so the original lighting adjustments that we made were the same. I added a very slight highlight contrast punch here with this point here. The other thing I've done is with the blue channel here on curves, I've actually moved the blue shadows, because if we zoom out, we can see here that, like, if I just go back, we can see here that if I put the blues back where they were and I move, we can see there's actually too much blue in the shadows on the subject as compared to the backdrop. So I actually found that I just didn't like that there was a little bit too much blue happening in there. So I actually moved this slider here. I just moved the blues just back a little, just to about there. And doing that, it just helped to align the subject's colors more with the backdrop here. I was just much more happy with having less blue in the subject with this adjustment that we made. And I didn't do any, I put a couple of slight adjustments on the green curve as well, but they're very minimal. And the reds here, I don't believe I really made much adjustment. Oh, it must be a very, very slight change on the red channel there. But then I added another hue saturation below that. This is subjective, by the way. I had finished what we did before, and I was just re-reviewing, and I wanted to just desaturate it slightly. So I found that that's where we left off just before, and it's still quite good. I mean, we could stop there and continue, obviously, but I just was looking, and I just wanted to add a slight further refinement. So if I just go up to image rotation, flip horizontal, and just turn off what we did, it still looks quite good. But I just wanted to remove some of that blue and add a little bit more contrast. So I'm pretty happy with that result. So now we're actually going to move on to refining the edges. So if I just go back, image, and rotate it back to original. So we're going to start refining the edges. So the first thing we want to do is we want to fix up these really harsh edges around the edge of the baby here. Just slightly around here, we just want to fix up some of these edges. Just soften it out, just to make sure that it's looking a little bit more blended with the backdrop. So to do that, we're going to go click on our subject group and go back down to the original layer of the subject and click on the layer mask here. So we're actually going to move over to our smudge tool, which by default, I believe it's at this bottom here, and the bottom tools here, and smudge tool. Now, if your smudge tool isn't in your toolbar, you can go up to edit How do we edit the toolbar? Sorry, here. So if you go to this bottom, these three dots, and click on Edit Toolbar, you'll be able to find, you'll have your toolbar here, and you'll be able to find the extra tool that you need, which is I need to find my smudge tool. So the extra tools, I've got the smudge tool here as extra tools for the toolbar. Yeah, so it should be on automatically for you, I believe. So the bottom here, which is the extra tools, smudge tool. So with the smudge brush, I'm not going to touch any of the settings. I assume this is close to default, or if it's not, default is fine. So what we're going to do is we're going to make sure our layer mask is selected. And we're just going to, on the edge here where we've got some harsh edges, I'm just going to soften them out by clicking and just kind of shaking the edge here, just to soften out the edge here of the subject, where it's quite, the original image was quite soft on the edge. So we just want to make sure we kind of just bring that edge a bit softer, just to match that original image. So I'm actually going to just make my way around the subject and just gently soften out some of the really harsh lines. So I'm just clicking and kind of just shaking the smudge tool just to smudge out the edges of this mask here, just to make it a little bit more realistic and have the edge of the subject, the lines not so harsh. And I won't move on to the hair. I will just do this edge here. So yeah, we've just softened out that mask slightly, just to fix that edge up. Once that's done, the next thing we're going to do is just some further edge refinement. So that's the initial mask edge that we just refined there. The next thing I want to do is I want to check the edges closely and just fix up any inconsistencies. So to do that, we're going to go to the top of our subject layer here, create a new layer, and clip it on there by holding Alt. So I'm just going to get my brush tool, and anywhere along the edge here, I'm just going to color select by holding Alt, or using the eyedropper tool, and just selecting areas where I'm just going to paint just to fix up some of these edges. That don't look 100% correct. That looks fine. Now, with the edges here where the baby's meeting the ground, I'm actually going to just color select the shadow under here and just gently paint in some further like shadow at the point where the babies would be sitting on the leaves here. And just here, it seems a little bit too bright. Just going to get my erase tool and just erase that gently. So right now I'm just kind of color selecting and just fixing up different areas of the image here along the edge where I feel like it needs more shadow or more color adjustments. Just gently painting those areas in. Right, so once that's done, we've basically just smudged out the edges of the mask and just added in very fine refinement around just some points on the edge of the subject. That's all we've kind of done there. So the next thing we want to do is we just want to kind of add some additional glow around the edges of the subject. Just for some reflective light. So we're just going to create so we're going to call this edge 1, and we're going to create another new layer and clip it above. Now this is the layer where we just add in some additional glow from the lighting around the edge of the subject. So to do that, we're just going to get our brush tool again, and we're going to zoom in here, and we can see that on this backdrop we've got some like kind of soft glow happening around here. So I'm just going to get my brush and I'm just going to select like the kind of one of the areas of light here, not the really bright area, just an area of light kind of coming closer down this way. So maybe around here. So my brush tool, I'm just going to come in, so just here, and I'm just going to brush softly with make sure we got the soft brush, and we're just going to paint gently just some of that glow up here. So you can see I'm just color picking here, just adding in some reflective glow around the edge here. So this part here, I'm actually going to highlight this part here because it's quite bright, and I'm just going to gently paint that on there, just like that. Just going to get my erase tool, just gently erase some of that. Go back to our brush tool, and we're just painting some glow around the edge here and even around here. Get my erase tool again, just erase a little tiny bit of that. Brush tool again, and we're just like making our way around the subject, just to kind of add that glow onto the edges where the light is. So you can see I'm turning it on and off. You can see the difference. So I'm actually going to get my erase tool. I'm going to slightly just erase a little bit of this. I just feel like that was a little bit too much there. But there. So I'm just going to invert this. Image rotation, flip horizontal. Yeah, and that looks quite nice. That lighting on top there. That nice, soft, gentle lighting. Okay, so once that that glow light is done, what we're going to do is we're going to add one further edge refinement. You don't need to do this, but I'm just going to do it for demonstration. So we're going to just call this glow. Underneath the glow layer, we're going to click on the edge and create a new layer just underneath the glow, and we're going to call this I'm just going to call it HL for highlights, and this is going to be some highlights on the edges just to kind of emphasize that edge of the baby. So I'm going to go back to our brush tool. I'm going to select some really bright areas like this area here, and now we are going to, where that light is kind of hitting on the edge here of the baby, we're just going to kind of slightly harshly like paint in some of that light where that is close to the subject here. Yeah, just like that. So I'm going to get my erase tool and just slightly take that back a little bit. And again, just select the whites. And just paint in a little bit of that highlight there. And just erase it slightly. So I'm just going to make my way around the edge and just paint in some where I think there would be reflective rim lighting on the subject based on the backdrop here. So I'm actually just going to color pick one of these really bright areas up here and just gently paint in some bright lines along these edges here. So we're kind of just following where the light would be falling. So you can see I'm just kind of painting along these edges of like the rope strands here. And softening it up by adding a little bit more emphasis on that glow. Just like that. So if I turn that on and off, you can see the difference in the highlights there on the subject. So I'm actually going to get my erase tool and just, I feel like it's probably a little bit too bright, so I'll just take it back slightly. Let's go back to my brush tool, pick that highlight area and just paint some of that in there. So we won't go too far with this. This is just to give you an example. There, so we just, you know, you could even call this, I've called it HL for highlight. We could actually just call it rim light. So rim lighting is like the lighting around subjects when there's a light source behind them. We call that rim lighting. You can also call it edge lighting. But just for reference, I'll just call it rim light. So it's just an extra little step we can add to refine our edges a little bit further. And so I'm just going to move around to the head here, getting my brush tool. And again, very gently here on the skin, very gently, just painting, we can obviously erase, but just painting around the baby's ear. Just adding in just very, very subtle light around here. Just on areas where the light would be kind of reaching. So just like this. And I'm just going to get my erase tool and just gently erase some of that there. We just want like a very subtle effect there on the baby. And even, I'm going to change my flow actually to about 40. 100 is a bit too strong. And just adding some lighting to the edge of the subject here. Just painting around the edge of the baby's face, just to give it a nice little lighting effect. So I'm going to paint that in there, get my erase tool and just gently start erasing some of that. So we just want it to be very subtle. So if I turn that on and off, you can see the subtle differences which bring it more to life. So I'm just going to do the same up here. Just paint along here, very gently again. Just areas where I feel like we're just painting kind of this lighting, this edge lighting along different parts of the image, just to give it some, make it more interesting, bring it to life, bring it more into line with the background. Again, get my erase tool, just slightly erasing some of that. I'm not going to dive into hair today, but I'm going to show you just a couple of effects we can do for the lighting of the hair. So we're going to just leave that called rim lighting. I'm going to actually create a new layer above rim light, and I'm going to change the blend mode to overlay. So this layer here, change the blending mode from normal to overlay. Just press enter. And we're going to call this lighting. And same thing, we're just color selecting here and just painting gently some additional highlight lighting on the subject's hair in overlay blend mode. So on the hair, just like that. And we're even going to just extend out and just go a little bit beyond and just paint a little bit further on the edge of the subject. So I'm actually painting a little bit even over here. Let's get my erase tool and just gently erase some of that. So if we look at the rim light layer and then the lighting, this lighting layer here, where it's the overlay blend mode and some additional glow on top. So they're basically the things you can play with, is adding some rim lighting like along the edge just to kind of emphasize the edges of the subject. And you can paint in some additional lighting with an overlay blend mode by color sampling, you know, one of the bright areas up here where the light source is, painting that on to different areas on the subject. And then I always on top kind of leave like a soft, like the soft glow, where you want that kind of on top, the soft glow. I'm going to call that soft glow. So just to recap, we did our edge light, our edge refinement, which was very subtle, just to fix up some shadows and parts along the edge. We used the smudge tool just to refine the edge of our mask a little, just to soften it up. We then added in some rim light, which is just a normal layer with just default brush and a very gentle painting of lighting on the edges of the subject. We then use an overlay blend mode to again paint in some additional light and then a soft glow on top. If you wanted to, you could go to your rim lighting layer, go and select your brush tool, and you can actually just see how it looks by painting a very, very subtle edge light along the subject's hair here. Again, it's subjective. It might not look how you want it to look. And if we just get our erase tool, just take that back. But it just adds yeah, a little bit more light onto the subject's hair there. I'm just going to test different blend modes here. No, so overlay is definitely the better blend mode. So one thing is with overlay, because we color selected the highlights up here, and it's there, if we check the color here, we're slightly in the green, like yellow. And so what that means is when we paint with the overlay blend mode, it's going to really saturate and overemphasize that greenish kind of tone. And so that's kind of what's happened in the baby's hair here. I mean, you could leave that, that looks okay. But I'm going to change that, and I'll show you how. So once you finish with that overlay blend mode layer, we can actually right click on that and change it to a smart object. And we do that so that when we go over to our settings up here on top, we go to image adjustments. We're going to add an adjustment layer to this lighting layer. So image adjustments and then hue saturation. And what that's going to do is we can actually just adjust the overall saturation of that lighting that we painted in on overlay blend mode. And so because I feel like it's slightly too green, I'm going to just bring that back, just back to like fully desaturated, and hit OK. So you'll see now, because we created a smart object, we have that hue saturation adjustment on that layer. So we've basically only painted in lighting now. We've took that green hue out of it, and then we have a soft glow on top. So if I just go back, image rotation, flip horizontal, I'm quite happy with that. The lighting is looking quite good on the baby there. So that I'm quite happy with, and now we are going to move on to overlay effects on your artwork.